You know what? It's not luck, it's not timing, and it's certainly not waiting for the perfect moment. The difference is this: successful people prepare for their success long before it shows up. They carry themselves like royalty, even when they're living in a studio apartment and eating beans for dinner. They understand something most people miss entirely. How you walk through this world determines what this world delivers to you. Let me tell you about a young man I met years ago at a seminar in Dallas. He was 23, worked at a car wash, and could barely afford the ticket to attend. But here's what caught my attention. This kid sat in the front row, took notes like his life depended on it, asked thoughtful questions, and when he shook my hand afterward, he looked me straight in the eye with the kind of confidence I'd seen in millionaires. He didn't apologize for his circumstances, didn't make excuses, didn't act small. He carried himself like he already owned something valuable, even though his bank account said otherwise. 5 years later, that same young man sent me a letter. He'd built a successful automotive detailing business, owned 3 locations, and was financially free. But you know what? I wasn't surprised. Not one bit. See, he'd been preparing for that success from day one. He understood that before you can wear the crown, you must develop the character worthy of wearing it. Most people have this backwards. They think success will change them, make them confident, give them dignity. They're waiting for the promotion to start acting professional. They're waiting for the money to start dressing better. They're waiting for the recognition to start believing in themselves. But here's what I've learned in all my years. Life doesn't reward you for who you might become. Life rewards you for who you are right now, today, in this moment. There's what I call an invisible crown that sits on the head of every person destined for greatness. You can't see it, but you can feel it. It's made up of dignity, self-respect, personal standards, and an unshakable belief that you deserve good things in life. Some people put this crown on early and wear it with pride even when nobody's watching. Others wait their whole lives for someone else to place it on their head, and they die waiting. I learned this lesson from my first real mentor, a man named Earl Schoaf. Earl was successful, but that's not what impressed me most about him. What impressed me was how he treated the janitor the same way he treated the company president. How he never spoke poorly about others, even when they weren't around to hear it. How he kept his word even when it cost him money. How he dressed with care, spoke with purpose, and walked with quiet confidence that didn't need to announce itself. One day I asked Earl, how do you stay so consistent? How do you maintain these standards when nobody would know if you slipped? He smiled and said, Jim, somebody would know. I would know. And that somebody matters more than everybody else combined. That's when it hit me. Carrying yourself like a king isn't about impressing others. It's about impressing the person who looks back at you in the mirror. It's about building such unshakable self-respect that your standards become automatic, natural, part of who you are at your core. Now, let's be clear about something. I'm not talking about arrogance. Arrogance is insecurity wearing a mask. I'm talking about quiet confidence. Arrogance says I'm better than you. Confidence says I'm working to become better than I was yesterday. Arrogance demands attention. Confidence earns respect. Arrogance is loud and showy. Confidence is calm and steady. The truth is, how you do anything is how you do everything. The person who cuts corners on small things will cut corners on big things. The person who lies about little things will lie about important things. The person who treats service workers poorly will treat everyone poorly when the stakes are higher. But the person who maintains their standards when it doesn't matter will maintain their standards when it matters most. I remember being broke, really broke, back in my early 20s. I had more bills than money, more problems than solutions. But I still shined my shoes every morning. I still pressed my shirt. I still looked people in the eye when I talked to them. I still said please and thank you. Not because I felt like it, but because these were the habits of the person I was becoming. Your daily habits are votes for the type of person you wish to become. Every time you choose discipline over convenience, you're voting for the successful version of yourself. Every time you choose integrity over advantage, you're casting a ballot for the person worthy of greater opportunities. Every time you choose growth over comfort, You're electing the future leader within you. Most people wait for motivation to take action. But here's what I've discovered. You don't have to feel like royalty to act like royalty. In fact, it works the other way around. When you start acting with dignity, speaking with purpose, and carrying yourself with quiet confidence, you begin to feel different about yourself. Your posture changes your psychology. Your behavior shapes your beliefs. The compound effect works on character just like it works on money. Small deposits of dignity, made consistently over time, build into an account of self-respect so substantial that nobody can bankrupt it. Small investments in personal development, made daily, compound into wisdom that transforms your entire life. Small acts of integrity, practiced when nobody's watching, accumulate into a reputation that opens doors you never even knew existed. But here's the challenge. Building this invisible crown requires patience. We live in a world that wants everything instantly. People want instant success, instant recognition, instant gratification. But character doesn't work that way. Character is built in the quiet moments, the private decisions, the choices you make when nobody else will ever know. The person you're becoming is more important than the circumstances you're facing. Your character is more valuable than your current bank account. Your integrity is worth more than any shortcut you might be tempted to take. Because here's what most people don't understand. When the crown finally arrives, when success shows up at your door, you'll only be able to handle as much as the person you've become can carry. That young man at the car wash understood this. He wasn't waiting for success to change him. He was changing himself to attract success. And that, my friend, makes all the difference in the world. Now, let me tell you about the 4 pillars that hold up every throne worth sitting on. These aren't fancy concepts you need a college degree to understand. They're simple principles that, when lived consistently, transform ordinary people into extraordinary leaders. I call them the foundation stones of royalty, integrity, discipline, wisdom, and service. Master these 4, and you'll find that opportunities start seeking you out instead of you chasing them. Integrity comes first, because without it, everything else crumbles. Integrity means your private life matches your public image. It means you do the right thing when nobody's watching, when it costs you money, when it's inconvenient, when it would be easier to compromise. I learned this lesson the hard way when I was 25 and desperate for a sale. I was selling insurance, struggling to make ends meet, when a wealthy businessman offered me a deal. He wanted to buy a policy, but he asked me to falsify some information on the application to get a better rate. The commission would have covered my rent for 3 months. I needed that money badly. I sat in my car outside his office for 30 minutes, wrestling with the decision. Finally, I walked back in and told him I couldn't do it. He looked at me for a long moment, then said, "Jim, that's exactly why I want to do business with you. Anyone who won't compromise their integrity for money won't compromise it for anything else either." That day taught me something powerful. Integrity isn't something you have until it's tested. It's something you choose, especially when choosing it hurts. Every time you choose integrity over advantage, you deposit strength into your character account. Every time you choose the shortcut over the right way, you withdraw from that account. The person who consistently makes deposits becomes wealthy in character. The person who constantly makes withdrawals eventually goes bankrupt in their soul. The second pillar is discipline. And discipline is really just respect for yourself. It's saying no to what you want right now so you can say yes to what you want most. Most people have this backwards. They think discipline is punishment, restriction, giving up the good things in life. But here's what I've discovered. Discipline is actually freedom. The disciplined person is free to achieve their goals. The undisciplined person is trapped by their habits. I remember meeting a successful restaurant owner who told me his secret wasn't cooking great food or finding the perfect location. His secret was getting up at 4:30 every morning to review his numbers, plan his day, and work on his business instead of just in his business. He'd been doing this for 15 years. His competitors slept in, complained about the competition, and wondered why they couldn't get ahead. But this man had disciplined himself into success, one early morning at a time. Discipline means keeping your word to yourself. If you tell yourself you're going to exercise, you exercise. If you commit to reading for 30 minutes a day, you read. If you promise yourself you'll save a percentage of every paycheck, you save it. Your relationship with yourself is the most important relationship you'll ever have. And that relationship is built on the promises you keep to yourself when nobody else is counting. The third pillar is wisdom. And wisdom is different from intelligence. Intelligence is knowing a lot of facts. Wisdom is knowing what to do with those facts. Intelligence can be learned from books. Wisdom is learned from experience, from mistakes, from observing others, and from developing good judgment over time. A wise person studies success principles daily, not because they have to, but because they understand that the mind, like a garden, must be constantly cultivated, or weeds will take over. I once knew a man who read every business book he could find, attended every seminar, took every course. He was highly intelligent, could quote statistics and theories all day long, but he was broke. Why? Because he never applied what he learned. He collected information like some people collect stamps, but information without application is just entertainment. The wise person doesn't just learn, they learn and then do. They turn knowledge into action, theories into results, ideas into income. Wisdom also means learning from other people's mistakes instead of making them all yourself. When I was young, I thought I had to learn everything through personal experience. That's expensive education, and sometimes dangerous. The wise person studies both success and failure, learns from mentors, observes patterns, and develops the judgment to make better decisions faster. The fourth pillar is service, and this might surprise you. Many people think carrying yourself like a king means being served by others, but true royalty understands that leadership is service. The greatest kings in history weren't the ones who took the most from their people. They were the ones who gave the most to their people. They understood that their crown wasn't a decoration, it was a responsibility. Service means adding value to every interaction. It means asking, how can I help, instead of what's in it for me. It means developing your skills, not just for your own benefit, but so you can contribute more to others. The person who consistently adds value to others' lives finds that life consistently adds value to theirs. I learned this from watching Earl Schoaf at company meetings. While everyone else was focused on what they could get from the company, Earl was focused on what he could give to the company. He volunteered for difficult assignments, mentored new employees, stayed late to help solve problems. And you know what happened? The company kept promoting him, kept increasing his income, kept giving him more opportunities, not because he demanded them, but because he'd earned them through service. Here's what most people miss. These four pillars work together. Integrity gives you credibility. Discipline gives you capability. Wisdom gives you clarity. Service gives you opportunity. Together, they create a character so strong, so attractive, so magnetic that success has no choice but to find you. But building character takes time, and it takes consistency. You can't develop integrity in a crisis. It must be built in the quiet moments. You can't suddenly become disciplined when opportunity knocks. Discipline must be practiced daily. You can't acquire wisdom overnight. It must be accumulated over years. You can't start serving others when you need something. Service must be a way of life. The beautiful thing about building character is that nobody can take it away from you. They can take your money, your job, your possessions, even your reputation for a while, but they cannot take your character. That belongs to you forever, and it's the foundation upon which you can rebuild anything else you might lose. So ask yourself, what kind of foundation are you building? Are you investing in character or just chasing circumstances? Because circumstances change, but character endures. And when your character is solid, when these four pillars are strong, you'll find that you naturally carry yourself with the dignity and confidence of royalty long before the world recognizes you as such. Here's where most people lose the game before they even start playing. They've got the wrong software running between their ears. While kings think decades ahead, ordinary people think about what's for dinner tonight. While royalty sees training in every challenge, most folks see only problems. The difference isn't intelligence, it's not background, and it's certainly not luck. The difference is how they've programmed their minds to interpret the world around them. Let me tell you about a conversation that changed my entire perspective on thinking. I was having lunch with a successful businessman who'd built his company from nothing into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. I asked him what separated him from his competitors. He smiled and said, "Jim, most business owners think in quarters. I think in decades. When they're worried about this month's numbers, I'm planning what this company will look like in 20 years. When they see a recession, I see an opportunity to buy assets cheap and hire talented people my competitors can't afford to keep." That's when it hit me. Successful people don't just think different thoughts. They think on different timelines. Kings understand that today's sacrifices become tomorrow's strengths. They plant oak trees knowing they may never sit in their shade, but understanding that someone will. This long-term thinking affects every decision they make, from how they spend their money to how they invest their time to how they treat their relationships. Most people live in what I call immediate gratification prison. They want the results without the process, the harvest without the planting, the crown without the character development. They see successful people and think they're lucky, not realizing they're looking at years, sometimes decades, of invisible preparation. But kings understand something powerful. The magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. Every challenge that comes your way is actually royal training in disguise. Think about it. If life only gave you easy problems, you'd never develop the strength to handle bigger opportunities. If every door opened easily, you'd never build the persistence needed to break through when it matters most. If everyone always said yes, you'd never develop the resilience required to lead others through difficult times. I learned this lesson during the darkest period of my life. I was 31, completely broke, more debt than assets, and facing the real possibility of losing everything I'd worked for. My self-confidence was shattered, my marriage was struggling, and I felt like a complete failure. I remember sitting in my car after a particularly humiliating meeting with creditors, wondering how I'd gotten so far off track. But instead of drowning in self-pity, I asked myself a different question. What is this situation trying to teach me? That simple shift in thinking changed everything. Instead of being a victim of my circumstances, I became a student of my circumstances. I started studying what successful people did differently. I began reading books that challenged my thinking. I sought out mentors who could show me a better way. Here's what I discovered. My financial problems weren't really financial problems. They were thinking problems. I'd been making decisions based on hope instead of reality, on wishes instead of principles, on feelings instead of facts. The bankruptcy wasn't just happening to my business, it was happening to my belief system. And once I understood that, I could begin rebuilding both. This is the difference between victim thinking and sovereign thinking. Victims ask, "Why is this happening to me?" Kings ask, "What can I learn from this?" Victims focus on what's wrong with their circumstances. Kings focus on what's strong in their character. Victims wait for their situation to change. Kings change themselves and watch their situation respond. The mind is like a garden, and you are the gardener. Every day you're either planting seeds of success or seeds of failure. You're either cultivating thoughts that serve your future or allowing weeds of negative thinking to choke out your potential. The quality of your thinking determines the quality of your life, and the quality of your life determines the quality of your contribution to others. Royal thinking means developing what I call opportunity vision. While others see problems, you see possibilities. While others see obstacles, you see stepping stones. While others see reasons why something can't work, you see ways to make it work. This isn't positive thinking for its own sake. This is strategic thinking that looks for advantage in every situation. I remember meeting a man who'd been homeless for 3 years. But here's what struck me about him. He carried himself with more dignity than most millionaires I'd met. When I asked him about it, he said, "Mr. Rohn, I may not have money, but I still have my mind, my character, and my ability to choose my response to life. Nobody can take those away from me unless I give them permission. That man understood something profound. Your circumstances don't determine your mindset. Your mindset determines how you respond to your circumstances. And how you respond determines what happens next. This is the ultimate freedom, the ability to choose your thoughts regardless of your situation. But developing royal thinking requires daily maintenance. You must guard your mind like a king guards his treasury. What you allow in affects what comes out. If you fill your mind with negativity, complaints, and victim stories, that's what will flow out in your decisions and actions. But if you consistently feed your mind with wisdom, possibility, and success principles, that's what will guide your choices. This means being selective about what you read, what you watch, and especially what you listen to. It means choosing conversations that elevate your thinking rather than drain your energy. It means spending time with people who challenge you to grow rather than enable you to stay the same. It means investing in your mental development with the same seriousness that an athlete invests in physical training. Here's something most people never consider. Hope is not a strategy, but vision is a magnet. Hope says maybe things will get better. Vision says, I will make things better. Hope is passive. Vision is active. Hope waits for change. Vision creates change. Hope is a wish. Vision is a plan backed by action. The person who develops royal thinking doesn't just dream of a better future. They architect it. They don't just hope for success. They study it, plan for it, and work toward it with systematic precision. They understand that thinking like a king isn't about feeling superior to others. It's about holding yourself to superior standards. Remember this, your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your character, and your character becomes your destiny. If you want to change your destiny, start by changing your thinking. If you want to wear the crown, start by thinking like someone worthy of wearing it. Because here's the truth that'll set you free. You don't have to wait for permission to think like royalty. That choice is available to you right now, today, in this moment. The only question is, will you choose it? Here's what nobody tells you about commanding respect. It's never about demanding it. The moment you have to ask for respect, you've already lost it. True respect is commanded through actions, earned through consistency, and attracted through the way you carry yourself when nobody important is watching. It's the natural response people have when they encounter someone who clearly respects themselves. I learned this lesson watching a janitor at a corporate seminar I was speaking at in Chicago. While executives rushed past him without acknowledgement, this man cleaned with such pride, such attention to detail, such quiet dignity that by the end of the day, even the CEO was stopping to thank him personally. The janitor never demanded respect, never complained about being overlooked, never acted bitter about his position. He simply carried himself like a man who understood his own worth, and that understanding was so powerful it became contagious. That's the magnetic effect of authentic confidence. It draws opportunities, opens doors, and creates connections that force and manipulation never could. When you genuinely believe you deserve good things in life, when you act with integrity regardless of your circumstances, when you treat others with dignity regardless of their position, something remarkable happens. The world begins to reorganize itself around your energy. I remember a woman who attended one of my seminars 5 years ago. She was working as a receptionist, struggling financially, but she made a decision that day to start carrying herself differently. She began dressing with more care, speaking with more purpose, walking with more confidence. She stopped apologizing for her ideas in meetings and started presenting them with conviction. She quit gossiping with coworkers and started reading during lunch breaks instead. Within 6 months, her supervisor noticed her transformation and offered her a promotion. Within 2 years, she'd moved to a different company with triple her original salary. Within 5 years, she'd started her own consulting firm. But here's what she told me when she wrote to share her success. The external changes didn't create the internal confidence. The internal confidence created everything else. This is why waiting for perfect conditions is the thief of greatness. Most people say, when I get the promotion, then I'll act professionally. When I have money, then I'll dress better. When I'm successful, then I'll be confident. But life doesn't work that way. Life responds to who you are being right now, not who you promise to become later. The throne isn't something you wait to inherit, it's something you prepare yourself to occupy. And that preparation happens in the small moments, the daily choices, the way you respond when things don't go your way. Every time you choose excellence over mediocrity, integrity over convenience, service over selfishness, you're casting a vote for the royal version of yourself. But here's what comes with carrying yourself like royalty: responsibility. True kings don't just elevate themselves, they elevate everyone around them. They don't use their confidence to intimidate, they use it to inspire. They don't build their throne on the backs of others, they help others build their own thrones. Because authentic royalty understands that there's enough success, enough opportunity, enough abundance for everyone who's willing to prepare themselves for it. The crown arrives. When you consistently live by these principles, when integrity, discipline, wisdom, and service become your foundation, when your thinking expands beyond immediate gratification, when you carry yourself with quiet confidence, something remarkable begins to happen. External success starts catching up to your internal transformation. Not because you've been pretending to be someone you're not, but because you've become someone you always had the potential to be. I've watched this transformation happen hundreds of times over the years. There was Marcus, a warehouse worker who started applying these principles and within 3 years owned his own logistics company. There was Sarah, a single mother who went from struggling to pay rent to building a successful real estate practice. There was David, who transformed from a failing salesman to the top producer in his region. But the most remarkable case was a young woman named Lisa, who attended one of my seminars 7 years ago. She was 28, worked at a call center, and had convinced herself that her circumstances defined her potential. During the break, she told me she felt stuck, like she was meant for something more but didn't know how to get there. I asked her one simple question: if you already were the person you're meant to become, how would that person act? She thought for a moment and said she'd speak up in meetings, she'd dress more professionally, she'd stop making excuses and start making plans, then start being her today. I told her. Lisa took that advice seriously. She began treating herself like someone worthy of success. She invested in her appearance, her education, her network. She started speaking up with her ideas instead of keeping them to herself. She took on additional responsibilities without being asked. She carried herself like someone who belonged in bigger rooms, even while she was still in small ones. Last month, I received a letter from Lisa. She's now the Vice President of Customer Experience at a Fortune 500 company, earning more in a year than she used to make in 5. But what struck me most about her letter wasn't the external success. It was her understanding that the crown had been waiting for her all along. She just had to become someone worthy of wearing it. This is the ongoing responsibility of wearing your crown. Remembering that true kings create other kings, not subjects. The moment you achieve success, you have an obligation to help others discover their own royalty. Because here's what I've learned after decades of studying success. The greatest leaders aren't those who accumulate the most followers, but those who develop the most leaders. When you carry yourself like royalty, you give others permission to do the same. When you refuse to settle for mediocrity, you inspire others to raise their standards. When you treat everyone with dignity, regardless of their position, you model what true confidence looks like. Your transformation becomes a beacon for others who are still finding their way. Your royal transformation starts today. So here's my challenge to you. Stop waiting for permission to be great. Stop waiting for perfect conditions to start acting like the person you're meant to become. Stop waiting for someone else to recognize your worth before you recognize it yourself. Your royal transformation doesn't require a ceremony, a certificate, or anyone else's approval. It requires a decision to carry yourself with dignity starting today, to speak with purpose starting now, to act with integrity in this very moment. The crown isn't coming someday, it's available right now to anyone willing to develop the character worthy of wearing it. Remember the young man at the car wash I told you about at the beginning? He understood something that changed his entire trajectory. Life doesn't reward you for who you might become. It rewards you for who you are being right now. He didn't wait for success to change him. He changed himself to attract success. And that's exactly what's available to you. Not next week, not next year, not when your circumstances improve. Today, this moment, right where you are, with what you have, exactly as things stand. Because here's the promise I can make you with absolute certainty. Life always rewards those who prepare for greatness. It may not happen on your timeline, it may not look exactly like you imagine, but it will happen. The universe has a perfect accounting system. Every deposit of character, every investment in your development, every choice to act with integrity gets recorded and compounded. Your crown is waiting. The only question is, are you ready to wear it? The throne room of your potential is open. The crown of your capabilities is polished and prepared. The kingdom of your possibilities stretches out before you, vast and full of opportunity. All that remains is for you to walk forward, shoulders back, head high, with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their worth. Not because life has been easy, but because you've chosen to be extraordinary regardless of your circumstances. Your time is now. Your moment is here. The crown that has been waiting for you all along is finally ready to be claimed. Will you accept it? The choice is yours, and it's a choice you make not once, but every single day. Every morning when you wake up, you decide whether to carry yourself like royalty or settle for ordinary. Every interaction becomes an opportunity to practice the principles of integrity, discipline, wisdom, and service. Every challenge becomes royal training in disguise. I've seen too many people postpone their greatness, waiting for someday that never comes. Don't let that be your story. Your kingdom awaits not in some distant future, but in the decisions you make today. The crown doesn't require perfection. It requires commitment. It doesn't demand that you have everything figured out. It asks only that you begin. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can. And watch as the world begins to treat you like the royalty you've chosen to become.